7 Laws to Master Your Life by Wisdom Matrix 1111. Introduction. Life mastery is shaped long before results appear on the surface. It begins in how you relate to yourself, how you respond to experience, and how consistently you live in alignment with what matters most. Across every life, certain inner principles quietly shape direction, growth, and meaning. When these principles are not lived, life feels scattered and driven by unconscious patterns and reaction. When they are understood and embodied, life gains clarity, depth, and coherence. This audiobook explores 7 laws to master your life as lived principles. They are not meant to be followed mechanically, but understood through experience and reflection. Each law builds upon the previous, guiding you toward a more integrated way of living. What follows is an invitation to deepen self-understanding, refine your inner world, and allow mastery to emerge naturally from the inside out. So let's dive in. Chapter 1. The Law of Awareness. Every form of mastery begins with a single ancient command: know thyself. Not as an idea, not as a slogan, but as a living, ongoing practice. Awareness is the foundation upon which everything else stands. When actions are not guided by self-awareness, even positive qualities turn unhealthy. They lose wisdom and become distorted expressions of fear, avoidance, or unconscious patterns. Without awareness, discipline becomes force rather than guidance. Love becomes dependency rather than freedom. Control becomes suppression rather than mastery. And spirituality becomes a way to escape life instead of engaging with it. With awareness, however, life begins to reveal itself clearly, both within you and around you. To be aware is to see what is, not what you wish were true, not what you fear might be true, and not what you have been told to believe. It is the courage to observe yourself honestly. Begin with yourself. Become aware of your strengths, not to inflate your ego, but to understand what you naturally bring into the world. Some people carry steadiness, others bring insight, creativity, resilience, or empathy. Awareness allows you to recognize these qualities without pride and without denial. At the same time, awareness asks you to face your flaws and insecurities, not to condemn them, but to see them clearly. You may notice patterns of avoidance, impatience, self-doubt, the need for approval, or the tendency to control outcomes. These are not failures of character. They are signals, messages waiting to be understood. When you are unaware of your inner patterns, they rule your life silently. When you become aware of them, their power begins to dissolve. Awareness also extends to your character, how you respond under pressure, how you speak when no one is watching, how you treat others when it costs you something. Character is revealed not in intention, but in reaction. Awareness turns reaction into choice, but knowing yourself alone is not enough. The law of awareness also asks you to observe others and the world around you, not with judgment, but with clarity. Notice how people behave, what motivates them, what they fear, and what they protect. Notice patterns in relationships, environments, and circumstances. Life is constantly communicating, but only the attentive mind can listen. This kind of awareness teaches you discernment. You begin to understand that people act from their own conditioning, wounds, and limitations. This understanding does not excuse harmful behavior, but it frees you from unnecessary resentment and confusion. Awareness sharpens perception. You begin to see situations as they are, not as you emotionally color them. You see opportunities where you once saw obstacles. You see warning signs where you once rushed blindly. You stop reacting to life and start reading it. This clarity is cultivated through deliberate practices. Self-reflection allows you to revisit your experiences and extract meaning from them. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" you ask, "What does this reveal about me? And what is it teaching me?" Contemplation slows the mind enough for insight to surface. In silence, you begin to notice the space between thoughts, and in that space, truth becomes accessible. Journaling turns the invisible into the visible. When thoughts and emotions are written down, they lose their chaos and reveal structure. Patterns become obvious, confusion becomes language, awareness deepens through expression, and analysis, when done honestly, brings precision. You learn to separate facts from assumptions, emotions from reality, and impulses from wisdom. Over time, awareness reshapes your inner world. You see thoughts as mental events, not as who you are. You become aware of your reactions rather than acting on impulse. Life shifts from unconscious habit to conscious presence. You become present, attentive, awake. Awareness does not demand that you change everything immediately. It simply asks that you truly see. And once you truly see, transformation becomes inevitable. Because what is brought into awareness can be refined. What remains unconscious continues to repeat. You cannot correct what you are unaware of, nor heal what you refuse to acknowledge. The law of awareness is not a destination. It is a way of living, a steady commitment to truth over comfort, clarity over illusion, and understanding over avoidance. Master this law, and you lay the groundwork for mastering your life. Everything that follows rests upon this first law. Chapter 2. The Law of Acceptance. While awareness is the act of seeing, acceptance is the act of allowing. Once you truly begin to know yourself, a choice presents itself. You can resist what you see, or you can accept it. The law of acceptance teaches that clarity without acceptance creates inner conflict, while clarity joined with acceptance creates peace. Self-awareness naturally leads to self-acceptance, if you allow it to. To accept yourself does not mean to settle, to stagnate, or to excuse harmful behavior. Acceptance means acknowledging reality as it is, without denial and without hostility. It means saying, "This is where I am. This is who I am right now." From that honesty, growth becomes possible. Many people struggle with the feeling that they are not accepted by others. They feel unseen, misunderstood, or rejected. Yet more often than not, this pain is a reflection of something deeper. They have not fully accepted themselves. It is difficult to expect acceptance from others when you don't accept yourself as you are. In some cases, others sense this inner rejection and respond to it. When you are at war with who you are, you unconsciously demand validation from the outside. When that validation does not come, the wound deepens. But when you accept yourself first, your strengths, your imperfections, your past, your nature, something shifts. You no longer need permission to exist as you are. Self-acceptance softens the inner resistance that drains your energy. It means accepting your flaws, not as permanent limitations, but as parts of your humanity. It means accepting your insecurities, not as weaknesses to hide, but as areas that call for understanding. And it means accepting your strengths without guilt, comparison, or self-sabotage. You are not meant to be flawless. You are meant to be whole. From self-acceptance, authenticity is born. When you don't accept yourself, you tend to imitate others. You borrow identities, voices, lifestyles, and ambitions that do not truly belong to you. You may admire someone's confidence, success, or wisdom, but instead of learning from them, you try to become them. This is not inspiration, it is self-rejection in disguise. True inspiration uplifts your own nature. Imitation denies it. Acceptance allows you to appreciate others without diminishing yourself. You can learn from those you admire while remaining rooted in who you are. You stop asking, "How can I be like them?" and start asking, "How can I express what is already within me more fully?" This is where authentic purpose begins to emerge. When you accept yourself, your goals are no longer driven by comparison, approval, or fear of inadequacy. Your purpose becomes aligned with your nature, your values, your temperament, your inner calling. You stop chasing borrowed dreams and start listening to your own. Acceptance also reshapes how you relate to others. As you accept yourself, you naturally become more accepting of people around you. You stop needing them to be different in order for you to feel whole. You recognize that everyone is navigating their own struggles, limitations, and growth. This understanding does not make you passive. It makes you compassionate and discerning at the same time. With acceptance comes gratitude. You begin to appreciate yourself, not in arrogance, but in recognition. You acknowledge the effort you've made, the resilience you've shown, the lessons you've survived. Gratitude replaces self-criticism, and appreciation replaces comparison. You also begin to appreciate others more deeply, not for who you want them to be, but for who they are. Relationships soften, expectations relax, presence deepens. Acceptance grounds you in reality, and reality is where true power lives. When you accept yourself, you no longer fragment your energy trying to escape who you are. You gather yourself. You stand whole. And from that wholeness, you move through life with greater clarity, sincerity, and inner stability. The law of acceptance does not make you complacent. It makes you honest. And honesty is the doorway to authentic transformation. When you accept yourself fully, you stop performing life and start living it. This law prepares you for the deeper force that follows, one that opens the heart and gives meaning to mastery itself. Chapter 3. The Law of Love. Love does not begin with effort. It begins with acceptance. You cannot genuinely love yourself while rejecting who you are. Any attempt at self-love that skips acceptance becomes performance, affirmation spoken over inner resistance, kindness layered on top of self-judgment. But when you accept yourself fully, love arises naturally. It no longer needs to be forced. Self-acceptance softens the inner tension, and in that softness, love finds space to grow. Self-love is not indulgence, and it is not self-centeredness. It is the recognition that your well-being matters. It is the decision to treat yourself with the same care, patience, and respect you would offer someone you deeply value. When love is present, care follows. You begin to take responsibility for your physical health, not from fear, but from respect for your body. You nourish it, rest it, move it, and listen to its signals. You no longer punish yourself through neglect. You also tend to your mental and emotional life. You become mindful of the thoughts you allow to take root, the environments you expose yourself to, and the conversations you repeatedly engage in. Love teaches discernment. It helps you recognize what strengthens you and what quietly drains you. At a deeper level, love nurtures your spiritual well-being. You make space for stillness, meaning, and inner connection. You sense that your life is not random, and that tending to your inner world is not a luxury, but a necessity. The law of love extends naturally beyond yourself. Just as self-acceptance opens the door to self-love, acceptance of others allows love to flourish in relationships. When you accept that people are imperfect, evolving, and shaped by experiences you may never fully understand, your heart relaxes. Expectations soften. Connection deepens. Love does not require agreement with everything another person does. It requires seeing their humanity clearly. When you appreciate others not in spite of their flaws, but alongside them, relationships become more resilient and honest. This is how strong bonds are formed, friendships rooted in understanding, connections built on respect rather than control, and intimacy that does not demand masks. Love also brings compassion. Compassion is love in motion. It is the ability to remain open when it would be easier to close, to listen when it would be easier to judge, and to respond with wisdom instead of impulse. Compassion does not weaken you, it stabilizes you. Through love, separation begins to dissolve. You feel more connected to your true self, less divided within. You feel more connected to others, less threatened by difference. You feel more connected to life itself, less alienated by struggle. This is where unity emerges, not as an idea, but as an experience. You begin to sense that caring for yourself, caring for others, and caring for life are not separate acts. They are expressions of the same underlying force. Love does not remove boundaries, it clarifies them. It teaches you when to give, when to step back, and when to stand firm. Love, guided by awareness and acceptance, becomes intelligent, grounded, and sustaining. The law of love transforms mastery from self-improvement into self-alignment. When love is present, your actions become more coherent, your relationships more genuine, and your life more integrated. You are no longer striving to prove your worth, you are living from it. This law prepares you for the discipline required to embody what you love, because love, when it is real, asks to be lived, not just felt. Next, chapter 4, the law of discipline. Discipline is not born from pressure, it is born from love. When you truly care about yourself, your life, and the people around you, discipline arises naturally. You don't need to force yourself to act in alignment, but you want to. Discipline becomes an expression of devotion, not self-punishment. Without love, discipline feels rigid and exhausting. With love, discipline becomes steady and sustaining. The law of discipline teaches that mastery is not achieved through intensity alone, but through consistency. Grand efforts made occasionally cannot replace small, aligned actions repeated daily. Discipline is the art of showing up, especially when motivation fades. When love guides discipline, you begin to apply it across every area of life. You become disciplined in your awareness. You notice when your attention drifts, when old patterns attempt to resurface, when emotions begin to dictate your behavior. Instead of reacting unconsciously, you gently return to presence. This is discipline at its most subtle and most powerful. You become disciplined in how you care for yourself. You maintain routines that support your physical health, your mental clarity, and your emotional stability. Not perfectly, but consistently. Discipline teaches you to honor long-term well-being over short-term comfort. You also cultivate discipline in how you relate to others. You choose your words with care. You listen more than you interrupt. You respect boundaries, both yours and theirs. Love without discipline can become chaotic. Discipline gives love structure. The power of discipline lies in its accumulative effect. Each disciplined choice may seem small in the moment, but over time, these choices shape your character. Discipline trains you to act according to your values rather than your moods. It transforms intention into behavior and behavior into identity. This law is one of the most effective tools for success, not just external success, but inner success. Discipline creates reliability within yourself. You become someone you can trust. When you commit to something, you follow through. When challenges arise, you do not abandon yourself. This self-trust becomes the foundation for confidence and resilience. True discipline is flexible, not rigid. It allows adjustment without abandonment. If you falter, Discipline guides you back, not through shame, but through recommitment. It understands that progress is not linear, yet still demands consistency. Over time, discipline quiets inner resistance. What once felt difficult becomes natural. What once required effort becomes habit. Awareness stabilizes. Love becomes embodied. Care becomes routine. Life becomes less reactive and more intentional. Discipline doesn't restrict freedom, but it creates freedom. By mastering your actions, you free yourself from impulse. By honoring your commitments, you free yourself from regret. By living in alignment with what matters, you free yourself from inner conflict. The law of discipline transforms potential into reality. It ensures that what you know, what you accept, and what you love doesn't remain abstract, but becomes lived experience. And through consistent discipline, mastery ceases to be a goal and becomes a way of life. This law prepares you for the deeper mastery that follows, the mastery of self-control. Chapter 5. The Law of Control. True control is quiet. It does not dominate, demand, or impose itself. The law of control is not about controlling others, circumstances, or outcomes. It is about mastery of the self. Everything else lies beyond your command. When discipline has been cultivated consistently, control emerges as its refined expression. Discipline teaches you to act. Control teaches you to choose, especially in moments of pressure. Self-control begins with your impulses. An impulse is immediate. It seeks expression without consideration. Anger wants release. Fear wants escape. Desire wants satisfaction. Without control, impulses lead. With control, they are observed, understood, and directed. Control doesn't suppress impulses, it governs them. You learn to pause. In that pause, awareness returns. And within awareness, you regain choice. This single space between impulse and action is where mastery lives. The law of control also applies to your reactions. Life will challenge you. People will disappoint you. Circumstances will not always align with your expectations. Reaction is automatic. Response is chosen. Control allows you to respond from clarity rather than impulse. When you master your reactions, you stop giving your power away. You no longer allow external events to dictate your inner state. You become stable in movement, grounded in uncertainty. Control extends into your habits. Habits shape your days, and your days shape your life. Self-control allows you to reinforce habits that support your growth and weaken those that quietly undermine it. This is not done through force, but through awareness, repetition, and restraint. Over time, control creates coherence. Your thoughts, words, and actions begin to align. Inner contradiction fades. You no longer say one thing and do another. This alignment builds integrity within you. One of the greatest illusions in life is the belief that control over others will bring peace. It never does. Attempting to manage people's behavior, emotions, or choices leads to frustration and inner tension. The law of control frees you from this illusion. When you focus on mastering yourself, you stop needing others to change in order for you to feel grounded. You recognize that the only domain you are truly responsible for is your own. This realization brings inner authority. You carry yourself differently. You speak with intention. You act with deliberation. You do not rush to defend, explain, or justify yourself. Control gives you presence. With presence comes restraint, and with restraint comes power. Self-control does not make you cold or distant. On the contrary, it allows you to remain open without being reactive, engaged without being overwhelmed, firm without being rigid. It is the balance between strength and composure. As this law deepens, emotional turbulence begins to settle. You experience fewer inner swings, less regret, and greater clarity. You become less predictable to your triggers and more anchored in your values. The law of control transforms life from something that happens to you into something that happens for you, because you participate in it consciously. Through the mastery of self-control, you reclaim your direction. Master your impulses, and your direction becomes clear. Master your reactions, and your inner world becomes stable. Master your habits, and your future begins to align with your desired outcomes. This law prepares you for the natural expansion that follows, where mastery turns outward, not as control over life, but as contribution to it. Chapter 6. The Law of Contribution. At some point on the path of mastery, a silent question arises. What is all of this for? Awareness, acceptance, love, discipline, and self-control refine you. They stabilize you. They strengthen you. But if mastery ends with the self, it remains incomplete. The law of contribution answers this question clearly. Mastery exists to serve something greater than the individual ego. True fulfillment does not come from accumulation, superiority, or self-perfection. It comes from contribution, from offering what you have cultivated back into life. Giving is not sacrifice, it's expression. When you are aligned within yourself, giving becomes natural. You give your presence, your insight, your effort, your creativity, your care. You no longer give to be validated or seen. You give because it feels right. Contribution can take many forms. Sometimes it is visible. This includes teaching, creating, supporting, and building. Other times it is subtle. This shows up as listening deeply, acting with integrity, and offering stability in moments of chaos. Every act of genuine contribution strengthens the fabric of life. The quality of what you give matters more than the quantity. When your actions are rooted in awareness, your contribution is conscious. When rooted in acceptance, it is non-judgmental. When rooted in love, it is sincere. When guided by discipline and control, it is reliable and sustainable. This is how service becomes powerful rather than draining. Giving also dissolves isolation. You begin to sense that you are not separate from the world you contribute to. Your growth nourishes others, and in return, life nourishes you. Purpose emerges not as a concept, but as an experience of meaningful participation. Contribution refines your identity. You stop asking, "What can I get?" and start asking, "What can I offer?" This shift does not diminish you. It expands you. It aligns your inner mastery with outer impact. There is also humility in giving. You recognize that your abilities are not meant for personal elevation alone. They are tools entrusted to you. When used wisely, they uplift not only others, but your own sense of meaning and belonging. The law of contribution teaches that fulfillment is relational. It arises in connection to people, to causes, to life itself. When you contribute authentically, you experience a quiet satisfaction that achievement alone can never provide. You also become less attached to outcomes. You give without demanding recognition. You serve without keeping score. This detachment protects the purity of your intention and keeps your energy clear. Over time, contribution becomes a way of being. Your presence carries value. Your actions leave something better than they found it. You move through life not as a consumer of experiences, but as a participant in creation. This is where mastery matures. It no longer seeks control, success, or validation. It seeks alignment with something larger, something enduring. The law of contribution completes the outward movement of mastery and prepares you for its final integration, the recognition of your connection to something larger than the individual self. And in that recognition, the journey reaches its deepest dimension. Finally, Chapter 7, the law of spiritual connection. Beyond awareness, beyond discipline, beyond mastery itself, there is connection. The law of spiritual connection is not an additional rule. It is the unifying field in which all the others exist. It does not replace them, it completes them. Where the previous laws refine the self, this law gently transcends it. Here, mastery stops being about control and starts becoming about alignment. As you grow in awareness, acceptance, love, discipline, self-control, and contribution, something subtle begins to happen. You start to sense that you are not moving through life alone. There is an intelligence beneath events, a coherence behind experience, a quiet order that responds when you are aligned with it. Call it the divine, God, the universe, infinite intelligence, higher consciousness, or source. The name does not matter, the connection does. Spiritual connection is the recognition that your life is not separate from the greater whole, that your intentions, when purified of ego, are met with support, that when your actions are aligned, resistance softens. This is not blind faith, it is lived recognition. When ego-based mastery dissolves, striving gives way to trust. You still act, you still choose, you still commit, but you are no longer forcing life to obey you. You are cooperating with something larger than yourself. In this state, effort becomes lighter. You begin to notice guidance not as commands, but as quiet clarity. You feel drawn towards certain paths, certain people, certain actions. Synchronicities appear, not as miracles, but as confirmations of alignment. Spiritual connection refines intention and guides action. You stop asking only, "What do I want?" and begin asking, "What wants to move through me?" Your missions in life become less about proving something and more about expressing something. You feel supported not because life becomes easy, but because it becomes meaningful. This law also dissolves fear. When you sense connection to something infinite, loss feels less final, uncertainty less threatening, and struggle less personal. You understand that you are part of a larger unfolding, one that does not rush and does not make mistakes. You begin to trust timing. You begin to trust process. You begin to trust yourself more deeply because you know you are not separate from the intelligence that moves life itself. Spiritual connection does not pull you away from the world. It anchors you more fully within it. You become present without attachment, committed without tension, purposeful without rigidity. You serve, not because you must, but because it feels like a natural expression of connection. This is where unity is no longer an idea. You feel it in moments of silence, in meaningful work, in sincere connection, in stillness, in gratitude. You sense that caring for yourself, caring for others, and honoring life are all expressions of the same underlying truth. Nothing is forced here. Nothing needs to be proven. The law of spiritual connection leaves you expanded, not instructed. It invites you to live as a conscious participant in infinite intelligence, fully awake, aligned and present in each moment. And when all 7 laws come together, mastery no longer feels like something you chase. It becomes something you embody. You are aware, you accept, you love. You discipline yourself with devotion. You control your inner world. You contribute meaningfully. And you move through life connected to purpose, to presence, and to the infinite. This is not the end of the journey. It is the point where living itself becomes the practice, where what you have learned is embodied in how you think, feel, and act. And from here, you don't merely improve your life, you master your life. Thank you for tuning in to Wisdom Matrix 1111. If you found value in this video or resonated with its wisdom, please support the channel by subscribing if you haven't already, liking the video, and sharing it with someone who may need this message. And feel free to share your thoughts or reflections in the comments below. Until next time, peace.